Did you know that the cup of coffee you enjoy goes through a series of stages to derive that lovely aromatic taste? Research is carried out delivering different varieties of seedlings, which are then groomed by the farmer to produce a huge amount of ripe cherries that are processed by extracting a green bean that is roasted, ground and brewed to make a ready-to-drink cup of coffee. We cast our net deeper into the role of different players in the coffee value chain. Kenneth Barije is the managing director of Mountain Harvest, a company that focuses on Arabica coffee as a specialty product.
Our business model is focused on working with the smallholder farmers and on our own estates to elevate the quality of Uganda's coffee, that's Arabica coffee, into the specialty segment. Once we hit that high quality coffee, then we export it for a higher FOB price.
As a model farmer, he justifies the importance of research in seedling sourcing.
To ensure that I'm going to have the right quality, the right productivity, I carefully take steps from the beginning to ensure that I have the right coffee. Number one, I have gone to Uganda Coffee Development Authority to get seedlings from their licensed nurseries.
The Uganda Coffee Development Authority is a government institution which was established in 1991 to regulate coffee along the value chain. We support research, we promote consumption, we support marketing of the coffee, we provide extension services to the farmers, but also we control quality to ensure that the coffee exported from the country is of high value, meets international standards. But all this, we are looking at providing foreign exchange earnings to the country and payments to the farmers.
Part of our budget goes to the National Coffee Research Institute to do research that is applied to coffee. And this includes development of pest and disease-resistant varieties. To also do value addition on coffee, they do some products out of coffee, which are now ready for commercialization.
Our new agenda is to make sure that the farmer gets much more from a small plot of land. In fact, our mission is to increase the total factor productivity of the small farmer's field. How do we want to do it? The first initiative is to make sure that the farmer gets much more from a tree. That is increasing yield by tree. In this case, we say that every tree matters. In this case, the yield of a tree increases the earnings of the farmer. We believe that if the yield was increased by average, for example, from the current 3 kilograms per year to around 6 to 8 kilograms, even if the price drops, the farmer will get enough yield to sustain himself.
Before we set up this farm, we started buying coffee from smallholder farmers. But we kept facing a challenge where the smallholder farmers had practices that they have inherited from their parents, and they lacked an opportunity to learn how to grow coffee and process coffee in a better way. We have now about 200 acres on this farm on the slopes of Mount Rwenzori that we then now use to demonstrate to both farmers and buyers that Uganda has unrealized potential in both yield and productivity on the side of farmers, but also on the quality that the Ugandan coffee can be if grown under the right conditions.
If you have given a plant a very good agronomic practices, it reduces an infection, which is cheaper than buying the chemical that the farmer may not afford.
So as you can see, I have spacing of about 2.5 by 2.5 meters on the farm. That allows about 650 coffee trees per acre. That spacing allows the coffee trees to grow wide with enough space, while at the same time allowing the coffee to get enough nutrients because they are not too packed in the coffee garden. Then after that, I make sure that the coffee is feeding well. So by planting caliandra, by planting beans, I am trying to plant leguminous plants that then fix nitrogen. I also do mulching, so the practices that I have in place, mulching, bending the coffee, pruning the coffee, making sure that I am feeding the coffee with organic inputs produced at the farm. That allows the coffee to have enough nutrients and therefore increase the size of the bean. We would like to call upon the government and researchers, especially the National Coffee Research Institute, to invest heavily in figuring out how we can either speed up the production of organic inputs or how we can access locally produced and therefore affordable organic inputs so that we can help retain our organic certification.
In efforts to sustain the organic quality of coffee, agro-input dealers have intervened with new findings.
Recently, we are introducing a new product called Cooperative, which is basically a foliar fertilizer, but contains a selected range of micronutrients that has been found to promote growth in coffee, but also contains what we call oligosaccharides that help the plant respond better to attack of, for example, diseases like the coffee rust. So this, once applied, enables the plant perform better, but also increase tolerance of the plant against those diseases. So the interesting thing also is that this product is certified for use in organic farming. And of course, since most of our coffee is destined to the international markets where I think residues and pesticides is an issue, this helps us ensure that the crop that is being produced is fit, with good quality, and able to meet the standards of these international markets.
I would like to appeal to national, global stakeholders to review the policies through which research have been done. For example, across Africa, we've been doing research for publication, research that does not benefit the farmer. We need to change our policy frameworks to make sure that the research that we do benefits communities, that the research that we do starts with the communities, and then the researchers develop innovations and keeps sustainable in that both are beneficiaries, the researcher and the communities.
The National Coffee Research Institute has done a very good job when it comes to Robusta. We have very many varieties for Robusta. We do have drought tolerant, disease resistant, but for Arabica, we still have majorly 3 varieties. That is Nyasaland, SL14 and SL28 that have been here for more than 40 years.
Currently, we have one innovation. We are developing an incubation unit, and an incubation unit that can train the farmer, and then or farmer groups or other value chain actors that they can be able to take up our technologies at a small fee, usually called intellectual property fee, because we need to sustain research. We feel if the market supported research and then the research supported the market, is more sustainable trade or commercialization of coffee that Africa has ever seen.
Farmers harvest all kinds of cherry, red, green, yellow. Now they do this because someone on the mountain is buying it. So that is the first challenge, that we get poor quality cherry. And the solution is that the government should come in and have regulations that require farmers to only pick and process red cherry. Our laws already provide for that, so all we need is enforcement.
Enforcement is one thing, but training good agronomic practices is what the farmer needs.
Nero tukasaba tute inywe government mutuletere nu yabandu batuyesaye.
The coffee cherry that is picked, it's the right one. It's red ripe. You don't pick it too early, you don't pick it too late. So it has to be at a particular point where it is ripe to be picked before it starts fermenting, or what we may call rotting. Now, that takes training of farmers, including crews of young men and women whom we call professional pickers, that then go and pick for a fee from the farmers the red ripe cherry. When the red ripe cherry comes to our stations, we have processing stations on the mountains and down in the towns. When we receive cherry, then we start taking cherry through the processing cycle, starting with fermentation, the right fermentation. So we do ferment for different hours depending on what flavor profiles we are trying to produce, and this is connected to what the buyer prefers. After fermentation, then we would have decided, are we going to produce a natural, are we going to produce a honey, or are we going to produce a washed coffee? So we do produce those three products. Once we have done that part of the processing, then we start drying. Drying is critical because that's when you're allowing slow drying, absorption of sugars into the bean. And if you dry too fast, you're cooking the coffee and spoiling the quality. So we manage drying. As you have seen, we have solar drying sheds. We control the amount of heat that enters. You have seen temperature sensors that we use to make sure that we understand how hot it is, and therefore what we need to do, whether it is opening the shed to get better temperatures or appropriate temperatures.
We, like in Kasese, we are involved in the washed Arabica coffee, and to ensure that we maintain quality, we manage coffees from the different small micro washing stations. That's where the farmers deliver cherry, and the day it is delivered, it is processed, it is floated, and after one day, it is washed and put on drying tables. So from there, when it is dry, with moisture content of 12.5, it is delivered to Bukon's Organic in parchment form.
Now, once that is completed, we do mill the coffee. When we mill the coffee, we again grading it depending on the government grading system, but also on what the buyers prefer. And then we take the coffee through mechanical sorting. We have a color sorter. After that, we have a group of about 200 women that we work with every season to sort out all the defects. After sorting, we are going to blend the coffee. So depending on what flavor profile a particular buyer is looking for, we are going to blend the coffee to get that profile. And then that is followed by preparing for export for the coffee to our buyers.
So the coffee that comes to Bukon's Organic is good quality, and the quality score has been 86.5. And if a farmer would deliver bad coffee, then we don't accept it.
We have inspectors. Inspectors are at each and every secondary processing plant. They are placed there. We have a schedule which we have weekly, and these inspectors inspect the incoming coffee. They check it to see whether it is dry, 14% moisture. They check whether it is clean with no impurities, and then they allow it to be processed into export grades.
For us to get an approval for export, we do have to get Uganda Coffee Development Authority that will come in and take samples from our coffee, the coffee ready for export, for analysis, and they give us a permission to export. As of now, they take those samples to a lab in Kampala, and we would request the government to set up labs that clear coffee in the coffee producing regions, especially Mbale for Mount Elgon, Kasese for Mount Renzoli, and maybe Zombo Nebi, so that we can get approvals just in a day. That helps us to speed up the process.
Of course, our farmers are smallholders, which means they cannot get a lot of volume. So their major role is to put together the different volumes of coffees from different farmers. They put them together, then they are able to get a better market. So the major role is to ensure that cooperatives bargain for their members.
New Cafe, its vision is coffee farmers profitably own their coffee along the value chain for their sustainable livelihoods, customer satisfaction, and societal transformation. Farmers are able to add value to their coffee. You know, they process it beyond selling coffee at farm level. And what we have done over a period of time is that by getting farmers to move their coffee from the very basic raw forms of coffee just say dry cherries, and you move them to exportable grades, when you have coffee graded, we have enhanced their incomes by 250% per kilo.
Cooperatives are faced by a major challenge has been the competition from the big buyers. Multinationals are a challenge. We are leading smallholder farmers, but down here you realize even a multinational is on the ground. We may not have all the money to procure farmers' coffee on cash basis. And that's where the multinational beats us, because they have money around themselves and the cooperatives are struggling. Like Bukon's Organic is certified organic and fair trade, so which means our farmers lose out from the premium that they should have realized from the primary cooperative if they sold their coffee to the cooperative. I'm talking about the additional amount of money that the buyer will add on the price because of being organic, has taken care of the environment and other aspects, and because of being fair trade, you have been in a fair business with the farmer, so the buyer will add that money.
The coffee industry is liberalized. Everyone else can participate. But as UCDA, most importantly, we provide daily coffee prices to these farmers. If a farmer sends a text message to 7197, you either send Robusta or Arabica or coffee. To that code, you get the daily market price of coffee in Uganda or in your region.
Despite high demand for quality Arabica coffee during the COVID-19 lockdowns, variations of prices in different regions in Uganda affected the cost of production, majorly caused by poor road infrastructure.
It is the poor roads that we have to take the coffee from the mountain. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes trucks are stuck on the road for days. If you're processing cherry, it starts fermenting. Before you know it, over-fermenting, and that you could lose an entire truck because it's over-fermented.
So once this coffee arrives here, we ensure that it's thoroughly processed to the buyer requirements. We usually have contract confirmations from these buyers, and we market these buyers through the samples that we usually send them. We send them the type samples. When they like the type samples, we send the lot samples, which are a confirmation of what we have at the warehouse for the particular lots we're having at the warehouse. And at that point, when the coffee is thoroughly cleaned, that's when we engage UCDA for the contract registration, where we register a sale, and at that point we do also the shipment inspection that is done by the UCDA inspectors.
Coffee is mainly transported by either rail or by road, and this is usually in 20-foot containers. The price of getting a 20-foot container from Kampala to Mombasa is about $1,650. This cannot be paid by an individual farmer. It has to be a collection of farmers that add together to transport that coffee to the port, and finally to the destination where the coffee is consumed.
Really, we've seen the export market evolve over the times. Of course, post-COVID, we had challenges, but these challenges have been fixed over the time, and we've managed to do close to 1,000 metric tons for the past year, and we are looking at growing this export quantity to around 4,000 metric tons for this coming year, the coffee year that is starting September 2022 to October 2023. So it's an exciting avenue for our farmers, and we continue to assure them that this market, the markets are there, the coffee is being yearned for, most especially with the African Free Continental Free Trade Area that is coming up, and we hope to play so much in that space.
While our competitors in other countries had lockdowns, our logistics continued moving very fast, and therefore we took advantage of those who had locked their systems to access these markets. Once in those markets, Ugandan coffee was much sought after. Many of them didn't know Ugandan coffee was such a very high quality and very high unique flavor and aroma. So once we accessed those markets, there was very high demand. And for the first time, we exported up to 700,000 bags of coffee per month. This is the highest we have ever had in a single month.
Because our culture, our coffee drinking culture is still young, we do not have enough investment in the value chain to supply the local market. And that's why we have been losing a lot of value, exporting only green. If I were to produce roasted coffee, I would right away increase my value by 8 times. So I lose money and the economy loses jobs when I export green.
The industry stakeholders have sought strategies to increase demand locally and internationally.
We are promoting the consumption of coffee locally to leverage on as a market, as a large producer, a major producer of coffee. So recently we came up with an affirmative action of engaging farmers, whereby we take the modern equipment and are able to showcase to them in a campaign called Coffee in the Wild campaign. So basically what we do is that we go to the farming communities, assemble farmers in their farmer groups, and we are able to share with them what the final product of coffee is. Actually, you can't be surprised that many of the farmers don't know what a cappuccino is. They don't know what any other kind of coffee is. Actually, they have never seen a roasted coffee.
I believe baristas are the key, or they're the faces of the coffee gospel because of the craftiness of the barista. How they make their coffee, it makes it special for even new people to enjoy it even more. I believe if the government can equip the barista academies or barista schools with more knowledge using the latest machinery and the latest technology in craft brewing and barista skills.
In our way to promote local coffee consumption, we have made Ugandan coffee very affordable and available. Because we believe that price of the coffee in the cup is going to determine how many people drink the coffee in the cup.
How do you boost national consumption of coffee? I think in the government's development plan, national 5-year development plan, it should come on the table. How government can invest to support, deepen consumption of coffee internally. That way, you are able to evaluate yourself that what am I doing? Am I moving forward? Am I moving towards where I want to go? So I think, for example, if we were to say that maybe within 5 years, we should be consuming at least 25% of our coffee internally. That will be a target, and that can allow you to address bottlenecks when they happen. You know, we are trying to support farmer organization, helping the smallholder farmers to come together for collective action, for commonality of position on certain things, but probably more importantly, really, to be able to access information and knowledge better. The smallholder farmers are able to get extension services better if they are organized in groups, in associations, than if they are not. There has to be public support for investors to access some fair-priced capital in order to be able to develop the types of products. And then secondly, Uganda needs to invest in understanding actually the different markets. Right now, it's the individual investors who actually do that kind of those kind of studies. But it is limited. A country could, through the appropriate agencies, could help generate and synthesize that information so that it's available to any prospective investor. So to me, the Africa Free Trade area is a very useful opportunity, but I think the level of depreciation and product depreciation is very important. Otherwise, we again end up being competitors in the same market area and not getting the benefits that are there.